Hi guys, and welcome to Angling For You. And today you join me at the fantastic oak tree fishery. And what are we doing today? We are doing a little bit of shallow jigger fishing for eyed and other silvers. We've got a lovely eyed to start the day. It just is a lovely method to fish this. Really simple and just a really relaxing method, and there's just an absolute ton of these beautiful eyed in here, and believe me when I say they go a lot bigger than this as well. So how are we doing this? We'll get up close and we'll show you, but the jigger fishing is one of the most simplest methods that you can do. What effectively you're doing is, if you've ever seen sea fishing, you're trying to replicate the jigging up and down. Now we're fishing through the layers as these maggots fall through the layers. We're lowering the line through the layers until we contact one of the fish, and we just jig it up and down, give it a couple of jigs, and then we're throwing the next set of maggots. Now this method is deadly. I mean, we're fishing it with maggots. You can fish it with casters, you can fish it with pellets, all depending on what species you're going for, what venue you're on. The principle stays more or less the same. Now the only difference is with oak tree is you've got to have an 8-inch gap between the bottom of the float and the hook. That doesn't mean that you have to have an 8-inch hook link. It just means that you need 8 inches between the bottom of the float and where the hook is. So what we do with a jigger float is a set between two float stops. So our bottom float stop is set at 8 inches, so it can never change from that. So you know you're never gonna worry about that. It's set at that 8 inches, and that's the minimum. If I could go shallower, I would do, but at the moment seem to be catching just fine on that sort of depth, and there's plenty of fish here. And sometimes what you can do with a jigger is, because you have the stops at either side, because obviously you need a top one to stop it, otherwise it just slide right up to your dacron, is to, if you find them at a certain depth and they're there for a while, there you go, you can slide down the other stop and make it a fixed rig, so you can hit that same shallow depth every time. And that's maybe what we'll do, but it's all about searching the water, and it just means that if then they move, you can then change it about and, you know, go back to a different depth or search the water again. You know, we're catching these lovely eyed, and you know, fishing doesn't get better than this for me. I mean, these are quality fish, they're well looked after, and they're absolutely full of beans, as you can see. I mean, you're not going to complain about catching one of them every bung, are you? And there's loads of big roach in here, loads of big eyed, loads of big rudd, and then also they've got a really good head of really decent sized barbel, and that's something that we're going to be testing later on with the new MIDI M2 pole and the M1 pole, is hopefully some barbel in short. And there's also there is carp in here, not as many as there are silvers, but there's also a lot of tension here as well, which are quite a decent size. So that may be something we try a little bit later on. But certainly get these fish going shallow. Now, an important thing to mention when you're fishing the jigger, now I'll explain it more when we've got it up close, is that you need a minimum really of an 020 line. That doesn't to say that you have to have 020 down to an hook. We've got an 013 hook link because we're fishing for smaller fish with an 18s hook. It'd be silly to go down to that. Basically what it is because you're jigging it, you need a stiff line. So we've got 020 power micron, and that just allows you to jig the float up and down, and it keeps everything stiff. And we're using single maggot, and there's a reason for doing this really. When you throw these maggots in, they go through sideways. If you ever throw maggots into your margins, you'll see it, and they go sideways, and that's how we've hooked it side on, and it falls naturally through the water. Now at the moment it's not absolutely solid with fish, and I'm sure whilst we're feeding it'll start to improve. What you've got to understand is you can't always just turn up and it be absolutely rock solid straight away. You've got to get the feed in, and the feed for me is little and often. What I've found out of fishing on the other lake is that you seem to get these bigger hides if you're feeding a little bit heavier than you normally would. So for example, around sort of 15 maggots or so at a time. And this one looks like a lovely hide. We've got this really light midi reactor core orange on today, and that's just perfect for this kind of fishing. Absolutely perfect. You don't want anything heavy. You want them to be able to swim out of the swim effectively, and you know, it just allows you to hook these better fish. And that's a beautiful hide, is that. Biggest one so far. Not been fishing too long. I had a couple of put-ins before we turned the camera on. Just put that down there and hold that up for you. Look, I mean, look at that. That is fin perfect, an absolute beautiful fish, absolute stunner. Let's get him back in. And I'm just looking at the bait. That's absolutely fine. And the good thing is that a lot of times when you side hook the maggots like this, they don't actually take it down or swallow it or anything like that. They're just hitting it, and you know, it's more or less straight on, and they're taking it, you know, without actually doing any damage. Now you have to have some shot as well. So with this we have three number 8 shots, number 10 shots, and that just allows you to have a little bit of weight when what's pulling your bait down when you're trying to jig it up and down. And as you can see, you're feeding those a little bit heavier. We're getting these better stamp hide, and you'll just be happy to catch these all day long. Another lovely fish. It's a beautiful fish again. You know, most of these fish are £1, £2 when you get the bigger ones there. It's just a superb spot. Maggot's still good for another go. What we'll do, we'll see if I have another fish, and we'll go rescue the camera from the other side and have a little bit of a close-up on the rig and see how we are catching these wonderful fish. And they're absolutely there now, they are. I'm just holding it in those upper layers. That's around that 8-inch deep to 10-inch deep is that. That's where they seem to be coming up to now. And every one is just hooked perfectly in the top lip. If this one will stay still, we'll get the hook out. There we go. And because of how they get hooked and how it works, there we had 4 fish there on the same maggot. And I'm just side hooking a white, and again, like I said, we'll get this up close and we'll show you. And they're just rolling it onto the bend of the hook. We've got good conditions for it today. I mean, it is a bit windy, but we have got good conditions in regards to it's got a ripple on, and if you're doing any sort of shallow fishing, the ripple, not only do the fish like to sit in the ripple, but it also masks anything above it. So if you've got a pole dangling above it, it's very difficult for fish to see that. We're just throwing them slightly into the wind so that they come back. Just makes it a little bit easier. There we go again. And it takes a little bit of practice to know when you're getting a take. It's just one of those things you'll practice, and you'll see you're looking for the line tighten up. I don't always take the elastic out. You see, you'll see the line tighten up, and then that's when you can just give it a little dink up. Doesn't need to be a lot. Like I said, this is a lovely hide, is this one. Oh, wow, that's a beauty. That's a beauty hide, is that one. That is a lovely fish. I tell you now, you'll be happy catching that anywhere, anytime. It's a beautiful fish. Just get that hook out. It's just pulled itself into the net. Let's see if it's going to play a ball. See if I can just hook this onto this elastic a second, and then we can try and hold him up if we can. Get this out of the way. It's a beautiful fish. This one is a giddy beast, so he might not play a ball, but well it's not playing ball at all. But he's an absolute beauty hide, is that. What a fish. Let's get him back in, and we'll get up and have a look at this rig, and a little bit more in close around the float and see how we're catching them. Right guys, time to have a look at the tackle. Now, like I said to you before, it's a really simple rig. The elastic is a Reactor Core Orange. It's around a 6. It's super light, perfect for these size fish, and perfect for hide fishing or silver fishing in general. The line, like I said, a minimum of 0.20, and just allows you to slide that float down the line. Which means you can jig it up and down, nice and simple. I've got a dropper at the top of a back shot, because I can just hold the line a lot more taut. And then I've got the little float rubber stop at the top. Now, what that top one does is that gives you your maximum depth. So the maximum depth is around 2 foot that I'm going to fish to there. The minimum depth is your bottom stopper. So as you can see, I've got an 8-inch, slightly more than 8-inch to be fair, from the tip of the hook to the bottom of the float, and that allows you to choose the depth of what you're going to fish as a minimum. Now, like I said, if you hook a fish and continuously in a certain area, you can move that top or that bottom shot up to make it a set rig or a fixed rig, and that'll be easy for hitting those bites if they're there, and you can just move those rubbers again if they change and decide that they want to go to a different area. Now, the hook is an MXC number 18, and that's onto a small hook link of about 4 inches of 0.13. Now, the presentation part of it is where you want the lighter line. I don't want 0.20. I want a nice light line that they can't see, and that 0.13 is perfect for that. Now, the kit that this comes with, now you can buy them independently and stuff like that. I've got jiggers, and I've also got rubber float stops and things like that. There's a little bulk, like I said, of 3 number 10s as the weight to take it down, but you can actually get a little jigger kit. This is an 8 to 10 mil from Preston. As you can see, that comes in with every single thing that you need. So you've got your jigger itself and the float stops, and there's quite a few float stops in there as well to enable you to do it. Now, it also says on the back there's a price, $4.99, so they're not massively expensive, and you can see there shows you a rig and how to assemble it. Now, obviously, if you've watched this video, you won't need to do that. You can just crack on as normal. We'll bring up that jigger and just show you that in a bit closer. So you can see there that the jigger can slide freely to that stop, as you can see, down the line. Now, the top one, like I said, is here. The bottom one is giving you that 8 inches with a little hook link and a 3 number 10 bulk shot. And it's really that simple. And I'll get a maggot and we'll hook that nice and close to camera, so then we can see. This is going to be a balancer top kit on the back of the camera while we do it. So in water, maggots naturally fall sideways. They'll fall down there, they don't fall down like that. So we want to imitate how a natural maggot falls. So all we want to be doing is hooking it through the side. Try and go as gently as you can. And you can see we've hooked him through the side. Nice and simple, and that's how he's going to fall in the water. The main key points, apart from getting that rig right and obviously hooking that maggot right, you only need a single maggot even to catch these big fish, is to just keep that feeding going. And as you can see, around the 10 maggots a time, and just on a steady drip feed. Now in summer like this, and when you've really got them here, you might have to feed a bit heavier, but do think if you do feed too heavy at the time and you're not getting too many bites, then the fish are going to go and follow the maggots down, and you just need to keep that in mind when you're doing your feeding. That's the rig, that's the bait, that's how we hook it, that's how we do it. Let's get it back on and see if we can have another couple of fish to finish the video. There's another reason that I was going to mention actually why you keep these light elastics on. If you see a lot of matches, especially an F1 match, a lot of the time they don't actually unhook. What they'll do is they'll just lift the pole up onto the rest, net it while it's attached, and the rig just stays as is. And they'll just, sometimes they'll need to change the pellet, sometimes they won't. It just allows them to come in and out super fast, and that's another reason why, a little touch there, that's the reason why having that light elastic works great. There's a few reasons. Number one is it's super light. You can take it straight out the swim, and it can swim off with absolute ease and not worry about spooking those other fish. And the other reason is it's just so supple that you're less likely to bump fish. And notoriously, when you catch eyed, the head shakers, as you can see, and they do toss the hook if they're under too much pressure with a tighter elastic. Little one giving it some, this one. And that one, believe it or not, in most places would be a cracking eyed, but that's actually a smaller one in comparative to some of the fish we've been catching, as you've seen on camera. Well, another thing when you're fishing with eyed, they're so giddy and so slippery that a little bit of an advice is just how you saw me there, is use the net to pick up the fish while you unhook it, and it makes your life a lot easier. They're not jumping out your hands. Safe for the fish. You're obviously hooking it with a netting that is made for landing the fish, so it's not as if you're picking it up with a towel or anything like that, which I definitely do not recommend. It's not good for the scales. They have a protective slime on there, which is not good if you start picking fish up with towels. It can damage the scales, and it can potentially knock off that slime with antibacterial properties and things like that. We'll get another bait on and give it another bit of feed out there. And once you get eyed going, you can put up some fantastic weight, and especially when you get the right depth of where they are, it can be an absolutely deadly method. Very windy today, and hopefully later on we're going to be testing out the M2, unless that's been up before, but I don't think it'll be up first. We'll be testing out the M1 and the M2, hopefully with some barbel a bit later on, and then that will be interesting as they pull back those barbel. See if we can grab another another fish before we finish the video. And like I say, when they're properly here, they're properly here. And they were on when they were starting to get on when we had the camera on the other side. There we go. And just takes sometimes a little bit to get them back after we've been doing some other things with filming. As you can see, look, they strip it lovely and light, this 6 elastic. Just allows us to pull them straight out of that swim. It's a nice one. There we go, in the net he is. As soon as we caught them relatively quick, we'll give it one more go. Oh, crosswind, making it a little bit more tricky. Hooked perfectly in that top lip, and like I said, just being able to grab them with that netting just keeps them safe and stops them splashing you and potentially getting poked in the gill rakers or anything dangerous like that. Just nicking on. I prefer to go for white maggot fried. Everybody will have their own little sort of thing. I don't know why. They'll take red maggot, no problem, no problems whatsoever. There we go. Now they're back, and this is how it can be, guys. Like when they're here, you can catch them very quickly and put up a really good weight, and especially with some of those 3 pound pluses that we've been catching earlier on. And these are decent weight builders as well, you know. These are 10 ounce to a pound, most of them. That's easy a pound is that one. And every one just perfectly hooked in that top lip. And that's just how that maggot is side on. They just come into it and just obliterate it. But it's so perfectly hooked side on. There's so much hook showing, it just nicks it in that lip. Because what they're doing is there's a shoulder just coming in, grabbing the bait and just moving away with it straight away, and that's why we're hooking it so nice. They ain't got time to swallow it or anything like that. And I got a little bit of pole behind me as well. You won't probably see that on camera, but the reason I do that is when it's windy, I like to have a little bit of stability behind me. Sometimes just a little bit of pole behind just allows you to keep it stable with that bit of wind. There we go. And it's just great sport. I mean, it's a beautiful venue, is Oak Tree, and they've got 2 lakes. If you want to go on to the other lake, is a little bit more carpy. There is some carp in here, but the other lake is more your bigger carp and your bigger sort of size specimen fish. But there's a head of them in here as well. Let's just come out in the net. There's a head of them in here as well. They're not as big, but they're still good to catch. And like I say, we got tension here as well, and you've got barbel, which we're hopefully going to show you later on today. But obviously fishing for barbel is not a shallow method. We won't be catching them doing that, so we will be going to that later on this afternoon. Let's have one more drop in and see if we can finish it off with a nice fish. Just jigging it up and down in those top layers. Glenn's bagging at the other side as well. It's just a great day's out fishing, and we had one there, and relatively inexpensive. You know, just your maggots. If you just want to do this, I've brought 4 pints with me. It can be less than that if you want, depending on how long you're staying and however you're feeding. It's just a really cool, really enjoyable way of fishing. And it keeps you busy as well. Sometimes, like, people do fish and they don't want to be busy. They want to sit behind a method or a cage feeder or whatever. This is a busy method, which I think sometimes is good. I like to be busy when I'm fishing. There he is. Just love that reactor carp orange for this kind of fishing. Beautiful, beautiful. No need to bully half of these fish either, just take your time, eat light elastic, just let them have a little run around and soon pop up into the net. That's another lovely hide in the net. So guys, what a lovely venue, Oak Tree Fishery. This is, like I said, called the Strip Pond, and we're on peg 4 today, but it doesn't really matter where you are on it. There's loads of fish to be caught and just a great day's fishing, and the owners are fantastic. Adele, Alison, they're all great. The bailiff's a lovely bloke that comes around. All they ask is that you adhere to the rules and just make sure you double check them. Things like method feeders are not allowed, but you can use inline cages and stuff like that. You just need to make sure that you follow those guidelines, and you can have a great day's fishing. So thank you very much for joining. If you want to look on this Facebook group, we've got an opening day coming at Fishing Tackle and Bait for Angling For You members with 10% off anything that you buy in shop, so that is absolutely amazing. So if there's some gear that you want, give them a ring, make sure it's there, and then come down on the 4th of September and meet us and get some gear for cheaper than anywhere else. If you want to go on the Instagram at Angling For You, angling_for you, join us on for the photos and all sorts of things like that. If you want to look for any other videos, go on our playlist, and there's all sorts of stuff from tackle reviews right down to the features and little videos that you see like this one today, including basic setups as well. So thank you very much for watching. Until the next one guys, if you could like, share and subscribe, that'd be amazing, and I'll see you soon. Tight lines.